So, hello everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the EFL Championship matchday review. Of course, we are going to be reviewing matchday 2 today in the second tier. I'm host Samuel Wright, joined by Aston Villa fan Raheil. And of course, Aston Villa, not a championship club, but Raheil's still going to give his opinions, and he certainly knows his stuff about the second tier. And one club, Raheil, you do know plenty about, one of the teams who started the weekend in the championship, Huddersfield Town. However, it's not been a good start to the season for the Terriers at all. Last season's playoff finalists, against all the odds really, no one thought they'd be there, but they've not started this season well, losing 2-1 away at very much an unfancied Birmingham City side. Good win for Birmingham, a good performance from them, really. 4 points out of 6, a really good start to the season for Birmingham, but not an ideal start for Huddersfield, still yet to get any points on the board.
Yeah, I think Huddersfield lost a lot of players. Obviously loanees, Lewis O'Brien being one of them, which was fundamental in the midfield last season. And then losing in that final, we just knew it was going to go one way or the other. Either they were going to get promoted and it worked out well for them, or they'd lose players that were obviously on loan. So like Levi Colwell, obviously Harry Toffolo's left at the back as well. There's been big it's been there's been players obviously coming in that have had to get used to the new manager as well, because Carlos Corberan's obviously not there anymore. So I don't really expect them to kick on now, because obviously it's kind of a setback now, so they just have to reset in some ways. So disappointing, the one goal, but it was a good goal, to be honest, in the end. Yeah, I kind of expected that in the first game. I wasn't really confident watching them, especially with the things that have happened behind the scenes since they've not been able to get promoted in that playoff final. And as a Villa fan, I know how it feels, because you lose a lot of lonely players. Players will leave, and they've left a lot of the players left for Forest. Obviously, Lewis O'Brien, Harry Toffolo, and they're a Premier League club, so why wouldn't you? But there was a lot of talk about Lewis O'Brien and Leeds United, and obviously he's gone to Forest now. So that's the main player they've lost really in midfield. So yeah, I'm not really confident about this season about Huddersfield. A bit concerned, to be honest. I'm just hoping they can fight their way through it and just rebuild again somehow. But it's going to take some time with the new manager, of course. Carlos Corberan going. A lot of the success of Levi Colwell, for example, who's going to Brighton now, was down to Carlos Corberan, the way he got him playing, and he's the Chelsea loanee, of course. And now if Huddersfield got promoted, there would have been a different story with him. He would have brought a lot of depth to the squad in the Premier League, but clearly he's gone to bigger things and better things. So good luck to him, of course. But yeah, Huddersfield as a club a bit concerning at the moment.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. Not a good start, of course, at all for Huddersfield, but as for Birmingham, a good start for them, but it's still a long way to go. And Birmingham, usually a club who do start the season well, then we kind of see them fade off second half of the season, but they'll be open. It's different this time, of course, under their new manager in Eustace. But going to go to a club now, two clubs who went the opposite direction last season. Norwich City were relegated to the Championship once again. Wigan were once again promoted, though, to the Championship themselves. A 1-1 draw in the end at Carrow Road. Norwich had plenty of chances in the game, but in fairness to Wigan, they dug deep, and it was a pretty good point in the end for Wigan, of course, coming up against a Norwich team who've still got plenty of their good players. But yeah, frustrating day for Norwich, and 1 point from 2 games for Dean Smith's side. Dean Smith, of course, Raheil, a manager you're very familiar with, took Villa out of the Championship a few years ago as well. But yeah, Norwich, though, maybe a little bit of a hangover due to relegation. But yeah, they just didn't see, they're very much misfiring in this game. But then again, a good point for Wigan, and especially James McLean, who really stood out in the game.
Yeah, I think Wigan, they've come into the Championship like Blackpool did last season, with a lot of hope and a lot of players, like quality players. I mean, I don't really hold them as relegation favourites at this point with the kind of team they've got and the way they got promoted. But clearly, not winning, but getting a point at Carrow Road feels like a win in some ways, a good start. And they've not lost the game, which is amazing, and they've scored a goal, although they've conceded one, which is expected because Norwich is a strong outfit. I'll take that all day long, to be honest, as a club that's come up from the League One. So yeah, it's a good start for them. Like, obviously, touching on Dean Smith. I mean, Dean Smith goes on the radar, kind of job he did at Villa. Going back now, how Steven Gerrard's struggling at Villa with the first game. Everybody's talking about how Dean Smith was, had the players there, and he just managed to just lose himself kind of when Grealish left. In some ways, didn't know the system to play and what to do when he was struggling. But as a manager, he brings a lot of quality. and he is a championship manager, solid championship manager, and not if not a Premier League manager for a club that's mid-table at least. He brings a lot of experience, knows his players, knows the kind of football he wants to play, and don't forget he's come through the ranks from Warsaw, Brentford, and then taken players from Brentford to Villa who've done well, like Ezri Konsa, and obviously rebuilt Brentford as a club as well. And look where Brentford are. So it's clearly got the quality to do it in that league. So I wish him all the best. I'm sure this season will be a better season for him. He'll get a full season to have a look at what he wants to do and everything. But he's definitely got the credentials to make it to where he wants to be. And obviously, I'm sure he's eyeing up a return to the Premier League. But with the players he's got, obviously Norwich, you know how Norwich are, there can be a side up or down. But I hope if they do get close to the Premier League, they stay there. Some like Fulham, for example, I think they started this season very well against Liverpool, and I think they've got a good chance of staying there rather than just being a club that goes between the Prem and the Championship. But Dean Smith in himself is a great manager, and he's got the good players at Norwich to do that. Although Norwich have lost a few personnel, is not probably strong as probably what they were a couple of seasons ago, but they've still got it in them, and they obviously know the league very well. Beating teams like Huddersfield 7-0. I don't know why I mentioned that, but I have to. That just shows the kind of class they've got. Although they've not made it last season, they can do that. So the quality's there to see for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not a good start to the season for Norwich, but they are a team who, once they click, could certainly challenge. And as for Wigan, a good start for them. 2 points, unbeaten so far. Of course, they want to get some wins on the board eventually, though. Next up, we're going to speak about Burnley, a new look Burnley under Vincent Kompany. Not just a new look Burnley, a Burnley with a very new and fresh style of play. Not the best start, though, to Vincent Kompany's home reign. A 1-1 draw at home to last season's playoff semi-finalist Luton Town. Luton Town, again, 2 draws for them at the start of the season as well. Luton, a team not many people think they're going to do as well as last season, but at the end of the day, Luton still want to be mid-table, maybe even push for them playoffs. A good point for Luton. Burnley had plenty of chances in this game, and it's a game that you imagine Vincent Kompany will be frustrated his side didn't win. But Burnley, though, still look very fresh and looking very impressive at the early stages of this season.
Yeah, I think Burnley, they've got a good manager. I mean, Kompany's obviously still learning his trade. Don't get me wrong, still premature in his managerial tenure, but he's got a good. I think it's a project at Burnley, and it's going to be a good project for a couple of years now. I don't think they'll make a full return to the Premier League, especially with the players they've got now. I think it'll be a work in progress and a project, but they've got the right manager there for it, and I think he's come that spot in the Championship for Kompany himself has come at the right time for them to rebuild the club again. Obviously, getting losing players from the starting lineup that could have been pivotal in the Premier League. In the Championship, sorry, for Burnley themselves, it's been a kick in the teeth in some ways. They've lost a lot of players, really important players as well. But I'm sure they'll kick on to try their best again. But for them, it's kind of a work in progress, a project as to where they want to get to, and it'll take a couple of seasons for them. But for Luton themselves, I don't expect them to have as great seasons they probably did have when they obviously were in the playoffs. I think for them, they'll just try and obviously avoid a drop and then go from there. Really, they've got a good set of players. Know the league, been there, been around the block. Kind of like Blackpool now, second season in the Championship. They kind of know what to expect. So I'm not really concerned for them. But I think the result was kind of fair as to what I witnessed. To be fair with you. And yeah, for Burnley, it's just a work in progress. It's not going to happen overnight. They've lost clearly some important players. Tarkowski, being one of them. Then Dwight McNeil as well. So yeah, it's going to be one of them seasons. They just need players to come through and perform at that level. I'm not sure they got the players right now. Obviously, with the 1-0 win and everything that happened. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And we're going to move on to Sheffield United versus Millwall next. A 2-0 win for the Blades. And of course, watching Sheffield United away at Watford on the opening day didn't really look themselves, to be honest. Yes, they came up against a good Watford side on the day, but wasn't really a Sheffield United performance to remember. They were quite poor, lost the game 1-0. But in fairness, they were brilliant here against a Millwall team who many people are fancying as outsiders for the playoffs this year, including myself. Comfortable win in the end for Sheffield United, though it's got to be said. And Leeds United loanee Charlie Cresswell going from hero to zero, really, give away one of the goals. And of course, the hero in that 2-0 win against Stoke with 2 goals and a clean sheet. But not his best day here, but a comfortable win for Sheffield United. And are you expecting the Blades to be up there again, Raheil? Or do you think that, the quality of the Championship this season, it might be quite difficult?
I think it's going to be difficult for them, to be honest. I feel like they've had their struggles now, but they're not going to struggle as much. Although they've got the players there, Billy Sharp. They've still got some clear players that have got quality. It's a very hard league to get out of, so you can't really predict it. So not sure about that, to be honest with you. Not sure about it at all. So we'll see about that one. But yeah, I think they just need to kick on from last season. They obviously tried to push towards the playoffs, didn't quite make it in the end. So they'll take inspiration from that, and they'll probably just go again, to be honest. But Millwall, on the other hand, I think they'll just probably be a mid-table side. No disrespect to early stage, but I just don't see them challenging that top 6. It's a hard league. Going back to it, a lot of teams you can say on paper they might go, they might not. But it's just one of them leagues. Anything can happen, and last season proved how tight it was. And I don't know if it will be this tight this season. We'll soon see. After Christmas, we'll get a proper idea. But you've got to get early wins under your belt to get momentum. And Sheffield United have got that, so they will kick on. They'll try the best. But it's a very unforgiving league, so you've got to really put together a run with the players you got at your peril.
Yeah, a first win of the season as well for Stoke City, 2-0 against Blackpool in what's known as a Stanley Matthews derby. Stoke, again, a team who obviously started with an opening day defeat against Millwall, were quite poor in the game. And you do feel like this season's a season for Stoke where they've got to start making that push towards the playoffs, because since getting relegated in 2018, Stoke have not even finished in the top half of the Championship, amazingly. So you feel like the pressure is going to be on Michael O'Neill this season. But Stoke ended last season with very good home form, and they won this one 2-0. Blackpool, though, obviously Raheil, their former manager Neil Critchley, is now the number 2 at Aston Villa, I believe, as well. Interesting one, really. Obviously, Michael Appleton's gone in. We know he's done a good job at League 2 and League 1 level, but Blackpool very much unfancied this season by many. But in the end, Stoke got the 2-0 win, and 2 teams who it's very hard to predict what's going to happen for them this season.
Yeah, I think for Blackpool, Critchley was a loss, big loss, to be honest with you, especially from what he did at League 1 and the way he got them steady in the Championship. So I do feel for him a little bit, although obviously it wasn't a position he was going to reject. Let's be honest about it. I mean, Premier League team, and he's got the experience to do it. So, I really liked him as a manager, even in League 1. And when he got up to Championship, it was good seeing what he did in his work. But it's just one of them. You lose your manager, but he's never going to reject that position. So you don't blame him in a way. But the manager stepped in, like I said, he's been from leagues below. Obviously knows the kind of football he wants to play, but I don't know if he's got it cut out in the Championship, I'll be honest. So it's going to be a very hard one to predict at this point. He's going to have to learn a lot in that very early on and very quickly, because the league's a long season. You can't be losing too many games. You want to pick up as many points along the way, even if it's draws. Try and keep getting points on the board. But with Stoke themselves, I feel like Stoke are in a good position now to challenge the top 6, and I think they'll really mark on that this season. The way they're playing their football and keeping clean sheets, and the style of football and the goals they're scoring, from range, for example, that goal that they scored, it was a great strike. So we're looking at a team that's growing in confidence, and I think they'll be a team to look out for this season. A lot of people probably say otherwise, but I think they'll be the dark horses.
Yeah, we won't talk too much about Preston North End and Hull City. That, of course, was a goalless draw, and Preston's second consecutive goalless draw to start the season. But we will talk about Sunderland, of course, who are now back in the Championship for the first time since 2018. Been a long time coming for Sunderland, obviously. 4 seasons in League One, longer than I'm sure any Sunderland fan would have expected to be in that division. They're back in the Championship, though, and 4 points from their opening, a possible 6 to start the season. A really good start for Alex Neil's side. But again, this is a really good game against Bristol City, a 3-2 win. They took the lead, went 2-1 down, then won the game 3-2. A really good start as well to life at Sunderland, I believe, for their striker, Ellis Sims. Yeah, Sunderland with a very good result, but you cannot help but feel the pressure's really going to be on Nigel Pearson now, though. Obviously, the Bristol City manager, 2 defeats to start the season, really good win for Sunderland, but concerning times for Bristol City. And when you've got a player like Anders Feynman who is scoring a lot of goals, it must be frustrating for him as well. The fact that no matter how much he does do at one end, they just seem to leak goals. Bristol City, and another example of that here. And in the end, it was a pretty poor result for Bristol City, but a very good result over Sunderland.
Yeah, Bristol City, like I said, the pressure's on. To be honest, they've not had a great start to the season. Obviously, losing the 2 games, conceding the goals in the fashion they are, it'd be concerning to know, what's gone wrong there. To be honest with you, is it the manager's fault? Is it the players' fault? What do you put that down to? But I still think it's too early at the moment to make any assumptions like that. We need to see a few more games, see what reaction they can get, because Pearson's clearly a manager who will get players out of their seats and performing. So I think it's a bit early doors to be maybe a bit harsh to judge at this point in time on that. It could be something from players' perspective and just mistakes on a personal level. So, but yeah, with Sunderland, I've been impressed with the way they've returned to the Championship, getting 4 points out of 2 games. Clearly, great start. And scoring 3 goals in the league. Although they obviously conceded the 2 they did. The way they played their football and made sure they stayed in the game was very good to see. So happy with the way they started the season, to be honest. And I do enjoy watching them as a club. I mean, in League One, when I was watching it, I know Charlie White was there at the time. Now he's obviously not there anymore, but he was a player I really, really rated a lot. Thought he could have brought something a lot to Championship, but obviously he's clearly gone another way and gone to Wigan. So, but I think still got the players to do it up front. Scoring 3 goals, clearly no mugs at scoring goals. So it'd be interesting to see how they get on this season. Kind of like Blackpool from last season. I just want them settle in the league and just know what it's all about, really. But yeah, the 2 goals I look at, they'll probably think it's concerning. But from Bristol City's point of view, more so, they obviously need to get out of this rot because it's not a good start. And the manager needs to pull out something very quickly. Otherwise, a lot of things will be in the papers about getting rid of him. But I still think it's early doors yet. It still need a bit of time to get used to the new season. But as you know, early on, don't get results. Any manager don't get results in a row, pressure will be on. So 2 losses already. So needs a reaction quickly.
Yeah, no, he certainly does. And next up, we're going to talk about the only team to take maximum points from the start of the season. Blackburn Rovers, a 3-0 win away at Swansea City. And a lot of people go back to this with Swansea. Last season, at times, Swansea looked brilliant. They played fantastic football. Other games, though, they looked poor. And on Saturday, unfortunately, it was the latter. They were really poor. Blackburn took advantage of it. And in fairness to Blackburn, they've now moved on from, Tony Mowbray, of course, who was there for so many years. Brought in Yondal Thomason. Not a lot of people really know what to expect from Yondal Thomason, but if the early season's anything to go by, 4 goals scored, none conceded, 6 points. A really good start for Blackburn, and it could be a very encouraging season for them. But yeah, Blackburn and this one, comfortable winners. And as I say, Blackburn, they could be one of the dark horses this season.
I think Blackburn are one of the favourites, if I'm honest. And that's probably bold calling that out, but I think they know what the league now expects. They've been in it quite a while. I think it's probably their best chance to get out of it. Still got Brent Brereton's Diaz is performing really, really well at that level. And they're doing really, really well. And a clean sheet, clearly a 3-0 thumping in some ways, although they were poor Swansea. 3-0 and a clean sheet clearly proves, they're one of the contenders for me, watching that game. And Sam Gallagher can do a lot up front as well. So, I really like the way they play the football, and the way they worked out Swansea very, very quickly and scored 3 goals. So, I think they'll be very good in this league this season. I think they'll be one of the ones that just think to themselves, look, a lot of people won't be counting on us, but we've got it in us to do it. And if you compare it to the teams that are around, I think they probably have got a very good chance of claiming the top 2, in my opinion. So let's see how they get on. But yeah, we're talking about Huddersfield. I know obviously talk about Burnley previous weekend, but Birmingham itself was a poor display in terms of that. Did watch a game. I think we started very, very poorly. And the way the 2 goals were conceded were very very, very, very poor in my opinion. So, yeah, I've already mentioned what obviously Huddersfield, Birmingham on the other hand, obviously you mentioned. I think for them this season, I think they're still going to be a little bit off it, although they did struggle at the start of last season, but they made it up. I think they'll struggle a little bit this season. Um, so I'm not really sure about Birmingham at this point. Although they got the win there, they don't really look convincing as such. But it'll be interesting to see what they do as well. But yeah, Blackburn for me are one of the ones to look out for. I think they'll be knocking on the door in the top two and counting themselves as one of the ones that can do well this season. So a lot of people will be shocked in my opinion on that. But I think this season may be one of their seasons to impress, maybe make it back.
Yeah, so one team who do look in a little bit of turmoil right now, albeit they got a very good win on Saturday, are Reading. Now, most people's predictions I looked at the start of the season, pretty much all of them were having Reading to get relegated. Now, of course, Paul Ince is a manager who has been out of the game for a very long time now, so that doesn't really help. We did keep him up last season, but obviously circumstances of Derby's points deduction and Barnsley and Peterborough just not being good enough certainly helped them out there. But, come from 1-0 down against a Cardiff side who beat Norwich on the opening day. Got a pretty impressive 2-1 win, Reading. Obviously, Tom Ince, the manager's son, scoring the winner as well, and a goal for Shane Long, his first goal since being back at the club. It was a good result for Reading, but as for Cardiff, though, it was a bit of a after beating Norwich, it just seems a little bit of an underwhelming follow-up for Cardiff, a team who not much is expected of themselves. But yeah, for Cardiff, though, after the win against Norwich, you really fancied them to win this one, but it wasn't really good enough from the Bluebirds in the end. But a good result for Reading and one that will relieve the pressure a little bit on them.
Yeah, I feel like Cardiff will really, really struggle this season. They're being inconsistent stage of the season, beating a top team and then losing against Reading, kind of sums them up at this stage. They'll be very what's the word? Inconsistent and unpredictable is the word I'd say. So I'm not sure what to expect of them, although they did score early in this game. But for Reading, of course, the manager having his son score is clearly a good thing for him to understand what's going on at the club and how to run it. And although obviously it is his son scoring there, I'm sure they've got a good understanding as to what they want to do this season for the club. But I mean, Shane Long's been around the block for Reading for so long, hasn't he? I think he'll just continue to play there regardless of what league they're in. But yeah, I don't expect massive things from Reading at this stage of the season, and all season actually. I think they'll be lucky to be in the top 10, in my opinion, with the kind of framework they've got in front of them and the manager they've got. No disrespect to them, but the league is a very hard one. But Cardiff, I'm not sure at this point. I mean, they beat Norwich, and then now they've lost against Reading, which is one of the teams that I didn't really expect them to lose against. So you're not sure at this point what to expect from them. Kind of like Swansea in some ways, the way they lost against Blackburn, and the kind of season I expect them to have. I expect them to be up there. So there's a lot of teams who don't really sure at this point. It just needs a couple of games to kind of see what's going on and what players can bring. It's still early doors. Players probably still getting used to certain games and getting their fitness up. So yeah, Reading not expecting much from them, but Cardiff, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so the final Saturday game we're going to speak about is Queen's Park Rangers versus Middlesbrough. An absolute thriller, to be honest, this game was. Of course, Michael Beale, the QPR manager, was, of course, Aston Villa's number 2 before Neil Critchley. A lot of QPR fans very excited this season. Obviously, their season fell off a cliff under Mark Warburton at the end of last season. They were very much in that playoff spot all season. They just lost it, though, towards the end. QPR, though, in the first half of this game were absolutely fantastic. 3-0 up. They were playing some brilliant stuff. Chris Willett scored a magnificent goal to open the scoring. QPR were flying. And then, though, Middlesbrough came back and did score 2 goals of their own. Middlesbrough did put the pressure on towards the end as well and nearly got a draw from an impossible position. So I guess we saw the good and the bad of QPR in this game. Middlesbrough, though, 1 point from 2 games. A little bit of an underwhelming start for Chris Wilder's side, it's got to be said. But QPR, though, a performance where you can definitely see the encouragement of Michael Beale, but at the same time, a game where the flaws also shown as well.
I really like Michael Beale. I like his character, what he brings on and off the pitch. Seems like a really nice fella, straight to the point. Clearly, his players are rubbing off that. I mean, Chris Willock with that goal, like you said, was fabulous the way he set the tone. The players just followed, although they conceded the 2 goals. I was very impressed with that first half performance and the way they played. So I was very happy to see the way they were playing, and I think they could be one of the sides to get into the playoffs. Considering how well they're playing, if they're carrying that first half they played, and the way they played in that first half, they could trouble a lot of teams. Starting on the front foot is always so important. They don't sit back; they press on them off. They just look like a team that's up for it this season. But conceding 2 goals clearly something they need to look at, and coming up against good teams, if you're going to concede goals like that, then in the end it will cause you problems. So you don't want to be in that position. But Chris Willock looks like a real player. Got Sam Field, obviously from West Brom. I kind of know a lot about. He's a good, solid championship player and can bring a lot of experience in that midfield as well. And so I really like the football they're playing at the moment, and I really like Michael Beale as the manager. I think he brings a lot of good stuff to that club. And although they've lost, a couple of seasons ago, they lost Eze, a couple of big players, they've still got it in them. And Albert Adoma, always player that everybody talks about, like his character and like his football. He's always a nice fella and brings that into the club as well. So they've got that on the bench as well. So I think in the season they could do the top 6 quite easily. But they need to just look at them goals they conceded and just make sure they close out games, because you don't let teams back into it. But for Middlesbrough, starting the first half wasn't probably great, the way they conceded the goals. And they'll look at the first half kind of like what QPR would look at the second. But I think Middlesbrough are a good outfit as well, and I think they'll be up there as well at this point in time. Yeah, interesting game. A lot of goals which I kind of expected, because both teams are really good and clearly matched for the championship at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what Middlesbrough achieve in actual fact, because I think they've got some good individual players, good manager. But as I've said before, this league is a hard league, so it's a hard slog. It needs a good run, and at this stage of the season, you want to just get confidence and just get the players playing. So we want to look out for Middlesbrough, but I'll count them to be in the top 6 as well. But yeah, plenty of goals in that game, so clearly tells you both teams have got quality all around.
Yeah, it certainly does, Raheil. And of course, Coventry City v Rotherham United was postponed due to a poor pitch, obviously due to the Commonwealth Games impact on that as well. So we can't speak about that game, but we can speak about Monday Night Football, West Bromwich Albion versus Watford. It ended in a 1-1 draw, and there's only one place to start, of course there is, and that is with Ismail Assar's opener. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, his own half, he picks up the ball and he chips the goalkeeper from inside his own half. It was a brilliant goal. Obviously, a lot has been made of Watford's front three and the quality of it. And one player who definitely stands out in that is Ismail Assar. Brilliant goal. Yeah, one play stop. But other than that, though, Watford were really poor on the night, I thought, and West Brom thoroughly deserved a win. But the fact Watford dig deep to get a draw says a lot about them. And obviously, Sarr then went from hero to zero, missing that penalty. So the one place to start is with Sarr's goal, but also it was a poor Watford performance. And West Brom, they'll be disappointed if they didn't win this game.
Yeah, Ismail Assar, listen, he scored that goal against Sheffield United. Let's go back a weekend now. And the way he scored that goal and kept up, his pace is clearly electric in that. I think Watford will go straight up with the team they've got, in my opinion. They're one of the best teams in the championship from what I've seen early on at this point. And they've got the players in abundance. You look at Ismail Assar, for example, he can finish. Although obviously he missed that penalty, they'll finish from long range. It's got to show his quality and his vision for everything. So, absolutely fantastic with them from Watford's perspective. And I do count them as one of the favourites to go straight back up, in my opinion. They've got the Premier League players there. Tom Cleverley, the experience. And, we've got Dan Gosling off the bench who came on as well. So there are players there that you can say, look, they've got some decent players. But this one, obviously, coming up against the West Brom side, they didn't really do well that season. Let's be honest about it, compared to the stands they should have got to. They're up for the fight early on, and clearly, the goal they scored clearly showed that. So, I think West Brom will have a better season. this season, but I'm not sure. Compared to last season, if you look at it and the way they just about cut out games last season was concerning, and it is concerning at this point to draw to Watford, although it is Watford, let's say. But I'm really impressed with Watford. Let's be honest about it. Dennis is looking a real player as well. The way he made effort against Sheffield United, I did see some great play from him as well. So, yeah, Sar's been on a lot of people's lips, even United fans. In actual fact, they probably would take Sar at this point compared to compared to players they've been linked with at the moment. So if people like Man United are talking about Ismail Assar, then he must be doing something right. But he's been around the block a long time now, hasn't he? He's been linked to a lot of clubs, but he stayed where he has, and credit to him actually. In actual fact, he could have been distracted, but he kept his foot, kept himself on the ground, and just made sure he performed. And look, he's doing it now. 2 goals in 2 games, and clearly up for the fight. So I think he'll be a really important player for him. But I think Watford have a good season. West Brom, on the other hand, I think they'll do better. But there's still some question marks as to whether they can defend in some ways, and whether they can actually score goals up front, because they didn't score many at the end of last season. So we'll see about that one.
Yeah, obviously that's the end of the games, Raheil, for this week anyway, in the Championship match day 2. A very good weekend, in my opinion. A lot of goals, a lot of big talking points, and probably the goal of the season. If a goal is going to be Sar's goal for goal of the season, it will need to be something very, very special. But with that being said, Raheil, of course, you know how we usually end these shows, and that is by you giving me your Championship player and team of the week. So which player and team are you going for in match day 2?
Got to go for Ismail Assar for player. I mean, that's a bawdy strike. I mean, can't really argue against that, to be honest with you. Don't think anybody else comes close to that, if I'm honest. The vision and the goal, the way he scored it, clearly for me, the player that everybody's going to look to. And everybody's talking about him even before that game. I think that people continue talking about him if he continues to score and play in that way. But I think he's a good talent. I think he should have been a player that someone should have picked up in the Premier League, to be honest with you. But he's obviously stayed where he has, and he believes in the project. So credit to him. Team of the week, got to go with Blackburn Rovers for their convincing win. I think they're top of the league for a reason. I think they'll be one of the teams that will push for automatic promotion this season. I really like the style of play, the way they made sure they didn't concede a goal, and starting from the off, and a shout out to Blackburn Rovers as well, with allowing Muslims to pray in the stadium. I think that's something that I've never seen before as well, which I saw on social media. So they're doing things right on and off the field, in my opinion, and that really helps the aura of the club and the aura of the fans. And I do like that as an outsider, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I'm Muslim myself, but the way they're doing things on and off the field for good reasons. And, they're not a club in turmoil by any means. So I think this season's the right place for them to go and push for the automatic spots. And team of the week goes to them just based on the goals they scored and how they scored and the way they kept the clean sheet. So although Swansea were poor, they were dominant.
Yeah, it could definitely be a good season for Blackburn Rovers this season. Of course, not been a Premier League club now for over a decade, but the way they've started the season, a little bit of encouragement that could change. But that's all we've got time for anyway on Championship Match Day 2 review. And thank you very much for joining me anyway, Raheil. And let's hope the Championship football continues to entertain us.
Fabulous. Thank you very much, Sam.